All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Madera County Transportation Policy Board meeting. It's May 17th, 3 p.m. and call this meeting to order. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on the agenda is public comment. This time is made available for comments from the public on matters within the board's jurisdiction that are not on the agenda. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. Attention is called to the fact that the board is prohibited by law from taking any substantive action on matters discussed that are not on the agenda, and no adverse conclusions should be drawn if the board does not respond to the public comment at this time. It is requested that no comments be made during this period on items that are on today's agenda. Members of the public may comment on any item that is on today's agenda when that item is called, and should notify the chairperson of their desire to address the board when the agenda item is called. Are there any public comments? Any online?
No comments on this.
Okay, we will move on. MCTC sitting as the Transportation Policy Committee. We have item 4, transportation consent items. The commissioner wish to pull an item for discussion. Thank you. Member of the public wish to make comment? Entertain a motion.
Move to approve. I'll second.
I have a first from Commissioner Rogers, a second from Commissioner Poitras. Do we do a roll call or just all in favor? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Item 5, transportation action. Item A, social service transportation advisory councils, SSTAC fiscal year 23-24 unmet transit needs recommendations.
Hi, good afternoon. Nick, could you please start the presentation? Oh, yes, Frank, he is the chair, so he would like to let him speak first.
Great, thank you. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Frank Simonis. I'm the chairman for the Social Services Transportation Advisory Council. For those that are new that don't know me, this will be my 3rd year serving as chairman for the council, and it's been a good run. Just to give a brief what's going on, we received lots of comments that come in, quite a bit more this last year than ever in our history. And we sort these. Myself and a member of staff from MCTC will go through these to determine what is actually in the purview of SS TAC, as opposed to comments that are not what we do. All comments are kept. Every member of the council receives every comment, even if it's not in our bailiwick. And what a member of staff and I do is we refer every question not pertaining to us to the appropriate agency. Something that might have to do with safety around a school, we will recommend that we send that to a school principal and ask for input, and that also goes to the county sheriff for safety, as an example. Or something goes to county roads if the comment was, please fix the potholes. There's many things that we actually receive as public comment that is not actually what we do. We handle the unmet transit needs, not transportation, but transit needs of 3 categories of persons within the county and the 2 cities: disabled persons, senior citizens, and those of an economic hardship or of low means. And essentially that's all that we do. And so, but all questions are kept. Every member of our council receives and can read every single question and bring it up if they wish to. But staff and I, we go through and pull out what's pertinent to us, and we present those first is our process, just to let you know what we do. And I'm keeping things short, so we're pressed for time. I'd like now to introduce to you Evelyn Espinoza, our Senior Regional Program Planner, and she's going to take you through a presentation.
Thank you, Frank. I'm just waiting for the presentation, so. So, next slide. So go through the unmet transit needs process, the unmet transit needs definition, how's determined if an unmet transit need is reasonable to meet, the public hearing process, the Social Service Transportation Advisory Council meetings, and then recommend out the board approves findings, and if there are any questions towards the end. So the Madera County Transportation Commission facilitates the unmet transit needs process by assisting with the coordination of the SSTAC. Provide access to the process by noticing the process in newspapers, on social media, and provide community flyers. We take written comments, hold public hearing, and provide access to accessibility services such as translation and interpretation. We catalog all comments made throughout the entire calendar year for the unmet transit needs process. And then the Madera County Transportation Commission Policy Board chooses whether or not to accept the SSTAC recommendations. The purpose of the Social Service Transportation Advisory Council, the SSTAC, they're tasked with reviewing unmet transit needs and making a recommendation after considering requests made during the process. The membership of the SSTAC includes representatives from member jurisdiction, residents of Madera County who are seniors, social service providers, transit users, and the disabled. The SSTAC is required by state law and advises MCTC Policy Board on transit-related issues for traditionally underrepresented and underserved populations such as the elderly, disabled, low income, and minorities. All comments received are entered into the process for the SSTAC to review and consider. The SSTAC reviews each comment to determine if it is an unmet transit need and if it's reasonable to meet. The SSTAC makes recommendations to the MCTC Policy Board. An unmet transit need is an expressed or identified need that is not currently being met through existing public transportation services. An unmet transit need is also a need required to comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act. Next. The term reasonable to meet shall apply to public or specialized transportation services that meet the following minimum criteria. The first one is feasibility. Oh, thank you. The proposed service can be provided with available Transportation Development Act funding and or other funding sources. Per state law, the lack of available resources shall not be the sole reason for finding that a transit need is not reasonable to meet. It has to have community acceptance. The proposed transit service has community support from the general public, community groups, and or community leaders. Has to provide benefit to the population. The proposed transit service serves a significant number of residents where it is needed and would benefit the general public and or senior and disabled persons as a whole. It is cost effective. The proposed transit service will not affect the ability of the overall system of the implementing agency or agencies to meet applicable transit system performance objectives or the state TDA fare bus ratio requirement after any exemption period if the service is eligible for such an exemption. The proposed transit service is, if implemented or funded, will not cause the responsible operator to incur expenditures in excess of the maximum amount of local, state, or federal funds and fare revenues and local support. It is consistent with the intent of existing transit services and plans. Once established, the proposed transit service will not abuse or obscure the intent of the existing transit services. The proposed transit need should be in conformance with the goals included in the Regional Transportation Plan Sustainable Communities Strategy and consistent with the intent of the goals of the adopted short-range transit plan. So this is a summary of each unmet transit need and the SSAC recommendation. For the Chachula area transit place, there were none to report. For the Madera Metro, there were 132 non-transit related comments within the city of Madera. 4 transit related comments, 2 of those were reasonable to meet, were unmet needs reasonable to meet, and 2 of those were unmet needs not reasonable to meet. The first 2 were about improving transit by adding those shelters at bus stop shelters and also benches. This is an unmet transit need that is reasonable to meet. The city of Madera plans to add shelters to bus stops within the next year. The second one was more bus stops allocations within 1/4 mile of an existing bus stop. This is an unmet transit need that is not reasonable to meet. The proposed stop is within 1/4 mile of another stop, the minimum threshold to have between stops. The city of Madera has conducted multiple public hearings and outreach events for the new Madera Transit Plan to solicit recommendations for new stops already. The majority of the comments were about potholes, street repair, traffic calming measures, street signs, street lighting, sidewalks, more policing for speeding, tree branch cutting, street drainage, bike lanes, and homelessness. These are not unmet transit needs, and the recommendation was to forward the comments to the appropriate agency. For Madera County Connection, MCC, the MCC Dial Ride or DAR, medical escort, and senior bus. There were 7 unmet needs that are not reasonable to meet, 8 not unmet transit needs, and 8 not transit related comments within the jurisdiction of Madera County. First one was more reliable hours or extended operation day during the day or the weekends. These are unmet transit needs that are not reasonable to meet. Insufficient ridership potential exists for this new expanded or revised transit service. The proposed transit service will affect the ability of the overall system of the implemented agency or agencies to meet applicable transit system performance objectives or the state TDA fare ratio requirement after any exception period, if the service is eligible for an exemption. Vouchers for microtransit, taxi, and Uber. Unmet transit need that is not reasonable to meet. The county is currently evaluating the use of microtransit service to meet this need. And MCC Dial-A-Ride service to Fresno Hospital. Unmet transit need that is not reasonable to meet. Madera County currently already offers a medical escort service to transport individuals to doctors or medical appointments to Fresno and Clovis. More space on bus. Square space only leaves 4 extra spaces in the bus. Not an unmet transit need. This is an operational issue and can be addressed on a case-by-case basis. Schedule delivery down to 3 hospitals in Fresno. Not an unmet transit need, medical escort is available for trips into Fresno for medical purposes. Coordination between Madera and Fresno services. Not an unmet transit need. Connections are currently available at Valley Children's Hospital. Discussions are ongoing to improve coordination as needed. Direct route between Norfolk and Children's Hospital. Not an unmet transit need. Insufficient ridership potential exists for this new expanded or revised transit service. The proposed transit service will affect the ability of the overall system of the implementing agency or agencies to meet applicable transit system performance objectives or the state TDA fare bus ratio requirement after any exception period if the service is eligible for an exemption. Request for Dial-A-Ride to come up private roads to pick up residents. Not an unmet transit need. This is a safety issue because the condition of the private road is unknown and potentially liability issues come into play. Additional transit and additional bus stops. Not an unmet transit need. Comments lack sufficient information for analysis. Medical escort, 2 days are insufficient. Not an unmet transit need. Insufficient ridership potential exists for this new expanded or revised transit service. The proposed transit service will affect the ability of the overall system of the implementing agency or agencies to meet applicable transit system performance objectives or the state TDA fare bus ratio requirement after an exemption period if the service is eligible for an exemption. senior bus to travel to State Route 49 and Road 601. Not an unmet transit need. The Madera County escort already covers this area. Bike lanes, homelessness, and garbage pickup, pothole security around outskirts of cities. Not an unmet transit need. The recommendation was to forward these comments to the appropriate agency, be it Public Works Department or the Sheriff's Office. We received other comments, one of them to review past years' unmet transit needs. The SSTAC reaffirmed decisions taken in previous years. At the end of this presentation, the transit agencies will provide an update on past years' unmet transit needs status. Comments to the Madera County Transportation Commission. These are not unmet transit needs. They are outside the SSTAC purview, and but MCTC has included a response in the packet. I'll also go over those right now. One of them was to conduct cultural relevant public engagement process on unmet transit needs by directly speaking with residents. MCTC is only required to hold one public hearing and advertise it. In addition to the public hearing that we have had 4 workshops throughout the county. We have had in Chowchilla, Oakhurst, and Madera. We have done outreach at the Pomegranate Festival, and there are other schedules already for next year. We have provided interpreter for public hearing, and also it's on if it's on request. Translated documents. These workshops have been provided at different times of day. They have been in person and virtual or hybrid setting. And the distribution of flyers has been throughout the county, as well as all the buses. The second one was to incorporate an equity framework in decision-making around investments for public transit funding. We are currently working on an equity statement or policy that may be part of future updates to the public participation plan. Those are my updates on the last comment. For recommendations, the SSTAC considering each comment received and recommends the commission find the following: that the Madera County Transportation Commission finds that there are unmet transit needs, including those that are reasonable to meet within the jurisdiction of the city of Madera. That the Madera County Transportation Commission finds that there are unmet transit needs that are not reasonable to meet within the jurisdiction of Madera County. That the Madera County Transportation Commission finds that there are no unmet transit needs within the jurisdiction of the city of Chowchilla. This STAC considered each comment and also recommends the commission find the following: to maintain existing transit systems in Madera County, Madera Transit System for Madera Metro and Madera Dial Ride, in the city of Madera, Chowchilla Area Transit Express, Madera County Connection, the Eastern Madera County Escort Service, and the Eastern Madera County Senior Bus. This STAC recommends that the current public transit systems continue to operate in Madera County, as identified on the slide below is the description of every single service. And now I'm going to ask Monty to give updates. Thank you.
Good afternoon, commissioners. I welcome the opportunity. Monty Cox, program manager for the Madera County, to give you updates on some of the stuff that the county has done to address some of these unmet needs, even though by definitions, some of these may be not considered unmet needs or may not be considered reasonable to meet. It doesn't mean that we don't work to accommodate them, right? A lot of what we do tries to accommodate the majority of the citizens and not just individuals. And part of the rules related to the TDA say that we have to do that. We have to be conscious of the funds and make sure that they're used in productive use. So some of the things that we have done. So during the COVID, we have not had to reduce any, and we did not reduce any of our services. We continue to operate throughout the COVID period, even though ridership was down. We knew that what we provide is basically lifeline service to a lot of these residents. And we know that they need that service regardless of whether they're, fewer people able to ride because of different reasons during that time period. So we did not reduce any services. So I think that's significant because a lot of transit services throughout the country had to reduce a lot of services during that time. And we were not required to do that. In March of 22, we actually increased some of our services. We have, brought a visual and didn't even put it up. Okay, so this will help you understand what I'm talking about here. So we operate 4 different routes throughout the county. Our goal is to serve the communities that are, outside of the metropolitan areas like Madera and Chowchilla, who have their own transit service within their communities, right? So we help people get from communities to community. We have our main route that goes up through the eastern part of Madera County and serves those small communities. That route operated 3 times a day. We understand that is very minimal lifeline service. And so last year, we actually added 2 additional runs on that route, which equates to about 40% increase in service. Okay, still not a lot. 5 times a day is still not a lot, but if you plan your day and you can make it work, right? Same thing with our Lavina route. We used to only operate that 2 days a week. We actually added a 3rd day during the week. So, and we go 2 times each of those days on that route. Again, very minimal, but we did increase that. It equates to, again, about 40% or 50% increase in service if you do the math, but it's still very lifeline. We understand that. We will continue some of the other things that we've done capital-wise recently is we've added the park and ride facility in Oakhurst and includes a sheltered bus stop where we will also be able to make connections with other services in that area, such as the Oakhurst shuttle and possibly some other regional services. We've added several bus shelters at several of our stops in several of the communities, and we're working on doing that continually. We have efforts in place. We purchased about 14 shelters about 5 years ago. We've gotten about a third of those installed, and we've got the rest of them with identifying locations where we're going to put those, because shelters does help improve the use of the transit system. And some of the other things we're doing going forward is we're going to be putting the shelter schedules or the schedules on at all the bus stops, so people know what time the bus is going to come to each of those stops. That's something that we've noticed is something that's very important. We've installed, let's see, and then one other project that I want to highlight before I quit, because I know time is short. There's a lot of requests that we get that, again, only accommodates 1 or 2 people. And so it's hard to say no to those folks. Well, one new type of service that the industry has created that we're pursuing is called a microtransit service. And it's very similar to a demand response service that we already provide in several locations, such as Dial a Ride. But it is different because it uses technology to have folks request their ride and actually get a response on what time their ride is going to be able to come. So it's actually more efficient for the operation as well as for the customers. And that microtransit service basically works with creating zones in certain communities and certain areas. And then a vehicle is dispatched to that zone depending on when the requests come in and where they need to go. And so we would for example, we could have a zone in the northwest area, we could have a zone northeast area, we could have a zone in the south, and then we would use those zones and the vehicles assigned to those zones to address requests that go in that area and get them to either a bus stop that would get them further or somewhere else within that zone. This is a service that we can more efficiently provide and provide a better service within those small communities. So where they don't have any service right now, that is something that we're hoping to add this coming year. And so that's something I think will address a lot of the unmet needs that have been given to us over the years. And we're hopeful that we're already talking to a couple consultants to help us design that service, and that we hope will get into place sometime next year. With that, I can answer any questions, or we can move on, because I know your time is short.
Madam Chair, I
Yes.
just have a question. Isn't there a micro transit happening like in Huron or in Fresno County? Right now, there's some sort of, or Kings County.
Yeah, they have worked on there were several projects that are communities that are also trying to use that same concept in various different styles. Some of them use volunteer drivers, some of them use hired drivers, some of them use, they sign out the vehicle to the public, and so there's different forms of that type of service, and several of those are in place, or at least being tried in some of those other communities. And I'm familiar with all those. I've worked in Tulare County, I've worked in Fresno County. I'm familiar with all of the different options that are available, which is why I wanted to make sure I could bring that option here.
Excellent. Good to hear. Thank you.
Just a comment, Chair Gonzalez, thank you for bringing this to our residents. Truly appreciate it. I hear that out there, that there's those issues. So I'm excited to hear that you're up and running and getting it designed for us here in the County of Madera. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now I have Marcela Zuniga for the City of Madera. She's going to give a presentation right now.
Good afternoon. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So I just briefly wanted to respond to some of the unmet needs associated with the City of Madera. We have recently, our City Council recently adopted a Madera Transit Plan that has been a huge upgrade to our current fixed route system. So what you're seeing is the map on the left is the existing route or routes. So currently we offer 3 routes. The proposed routes on the right include the addition of a 4th route. So I'm just going to quickly go through a few slides to show the differences in the routes. Okay, so this is our purple line proposal. It's our first route, and a large focus on the transit plan was to be equitable throughout the community. It was to streamline the bus stops and make it more time efficient for the riders. You can see there are multiple transfer points throughout the line. This is a common thread throughout all of the stops. This is our orange line proposal. This proposal was modified to really be equitable in terms of serving the southeast portion of Madera, which is best served through this proposal, considering our current routes. So we extended this route to serve the southeast portion up through Tozer and up to, this is the Rancho San Miguel shopping center. This avoids riders from having to use multiple routes to jump from one route to another to get access to this particular shopping center. Oops, I went too far. Sorry, I couldn't get it to read. Okay, this is our green line proposal. This line serves, you can see it starts at the Cleveland Avenue, as most do, but it serves our community college. This is what we refer to as our Avenue 12 quarter. So it serves our students going out and using the college. And then this is the addition of the blue line proposal. This proposal is one of the reasons that we created it was to serve the current Amtrak station. When the Amtrak station relocates, this stop will end here, and we will just do away with this final quarter strip there. But again, we wanted to make sure residents had access to key locations in the community. So that concludes, I'll stop sharing. And that concludes the route proposals. I wanted just to give a visual of how our routes will change. These routes will go live in July. And the main focus, as I mentioned, was for the routes to be more equitable to the residents of the city of Madera. I know some of the comments that were shared were bus shelters. Part of the proposal resulted in the not only the addition of bus stops, but also the removal of some. So what we are proposing as a result of the transit plan is a bus shelter project, and we will be adding shelters to all of our stops. Now, this will hopefully start happening at some time after July. We have to wait till they go live, but we are addressing, that is actually one of the points that our consultant brought up, is making sure that all of our stops had shelters, all of our stops had waste baskets, and they were, they could reasonably serve our community. So the transit plan definitely did address the need for bus shelters, and we are currently in the beginning stages of the procurement process for the not to procure the bus shelters, but to procure the process of installing them, removing and installing. And I know the waste baskets again was also an assessment through the transit plan on behalf of our consultant. And there were a couple of other wait times. That was the other comment that I know we received. And again, part of revamping the fixed route system was to shorten up the wait time for passengers. Additionally, we are in the RFP process right now. We are in the final process of proposing a vendor to the city council for a pending technology RFP that we have out. The technology RFP, the technology vendor will provide information, through the app and through all the services that they will provide, to provide real-time updates to passengers, as well as to the city. So in terms of we will have access to that information. So that will also assist with wait times. So that's kind of running concurrently with the transit plan. The transit plan alone is working towards focusing on shortening wait times, but we also are still working on, again, this technology RFP that is currently pending a vendor to be assigned and approved by council. I'll keep it short for the sake of time, but we really do believe on behalf of the city of Madera that the Madera Transit Plan and its revisions have in fact met any concerns identified and brought forward on behalf of the public.
Thank you.
I'll be happy to answer any questions.
I believe we have a question from Commissioner Garcia.
Actually, it's a comment, and thank you Marcela, very much for the hard work that you and the rest of our city staff has put into this transit plan. We have tweaked it, the plan, over an extended period of time. We've made it a huge effort to provide input and get input from our community. We have tweaked it several times. We're very excited about the rollout in July, particularly in looking at changing the routes, streamlining the routes, decreasing wait times. And we are anticipating with bated breath to see how it's going to roll out. We anticipate it's going to be a positive move for our city. And we're very excited. And I want to thank you and all of our staff for making sure that this is happening in the city.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you.
That concludes my presentation, and just recommend that the board accepts the stack combinations.
Okay. Do we have any members of the public wishing to make public comment?
No hands raised.
Hands raised. Okay. At this point, I'll bring it back to the commission.
So move to approve 5A as presented.
I'll second.
A first and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Any opposed? Thank you very much.
Yeah, Madam Chair, just to add that it will be approving by resolution. So
Thank you, Commissioner.
resolution number 2305.
Thank you. Item 5B, 2023 state legislative update and May revision to the governor's budget.
So with me today, I have Gus Corey from Corey Consulting. And today he's going to be providing us an update on some of the bills that we've been watching and following that pertain to transportation. He will specifically be asking or sharing with us some movement. It's kind of been fluid, so we haven't taken any positions. We're kind of watching on the Friedman bills that you've been hearing about, AB 6 and AB 7. But the action today from you is to authorize the chair to execute a letter to oppose AB 1525, Bonta, and I'll have Gus share with you that. And then he'll transition in and talk to you a little bit about the state budget revision that was shared last week, and just kind of give you a high level summary as it relates to the work we do here at the Transportation Commission. So Gus. with that,
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you so much, Director Taylor. Good afternoon, Chair and members. Gus Corey, Legislative Advocate for MCTC. Pleasure to be with you this afternoon. Lots going on in Sacramento, as you can imagine, this time of year. And as Director Taylor mentioned, I think I'm going to take the budget first, just because that's a little bit more hot off the press. So Governor Newsom on Friday, on May 12th, had issued his May revision to the fiscal year 23-24 state budget. And predictably, the deficit's gotten a little bit worse. There was a $22.5 billion general fund deficit that was identified in January. It's now climbed to about $31.5 billion, which is much less than what folks were thinking as about a $40 billion deficit. Part of the flaw, if you will, is that there's been a delay given the storms that occurred during the winter. The IRS and the FTB delayed tax collection until October, and so the state is waiting on some substantial personal income tax receipts, corporate tax receipts, so that they can make a true determination as far as what our resources are. But it is fairly fluid. It's just the nature of the beast when it comes to the state budget. And it's because we literally play the stock market and rely on the top 1% in this state to finance our activities. And so that being said, the good news is that most of this does not impact transportation. There is a healthy reserve of $30 billion or $37 billion as well. But because transportation is funded through special taxes like the gas tax or fees like the vehicle registration fee, like the Senate Bill 1 programs, we're fairly insulated. There is one item of concern, however, and it does go back to last year. In last year's budget, and I do apologize, there was one error in my report. I referenced Assembly Bill 180. It's actually Senate Bill 198. I got my trailer bills mixed. The legislature had promised that over the course of the next 2 fiscal years, so fiscal year 23-24 and 24-25, that $2 billion would be allocated, and it was intent language, so it was contingent upon the availability of resources. And the governor's choosing to scale some of that back for transit. And just kind of given where we are, some of the other priorities where they need to fund education, health and human services, and pay down some pension obligations that the state has to try to get up to speed on that. It's sort of, there's been a lot of discussion on this one. The Transit Association is looking to try to get all $4 billion so that there's some more predictability, stability over funding transit operations. But I think the governor's trying to look at what do we do to take care of this issue in the current fiscal year, and then can we just come back in a prospective fiscal year, maybe the budget's improved and they can make good on the remaining $2 billion. But the Senate has shown interest in supporting the Transit Association. The Assembly hasn't weighed in as much. And so that will be a big 3 conversation. So the governor, the Speaker of the Assembly, and the Senate President Pro Tem. Leadership wise, Assembly Member Anthony Rendon from Los Angeles, who's been Speaker for the better part of 12 years, is going to hand over the reins to Robert Rivas, Assembly Member from San Benito County, on June 30th. They should have the main budget bill done by then, but there will be some business after the summer recess that they take up in August before they adjourn in the middle of September. So that's just a quick snapshot of the state budget. There's, I guess, one more item on the budget. There's an indirect cost rate that we pay that Caltrans assesses for work done on the state highway system that self-help counties pay. There was a cap of 10%. That cap expired last fiscal year in 22-23. So June the 20th of, or 30th, I'm sorry, of last year. We're looking to make a retroactive extension so that we're not having to pay, what I've heard from Director Taylor, could be up to a 27% increase on work on State Route 233 in Chowchilla. It's about an $800,000 increase that we'd have a difficult time of finding to address that project. So we're working very closely with self-help counties, with the professional engineers in California government and Caltrans to have some kind of resolution. Caltrans has to issue a report. That was a condition and a holdup to why the thing didn't get extended. We're trying to do away with the report and just have this be a cap in perpetuity so that you have more predictability over how we use our measured dollars to deliver projects within the county. So that's again, sorry, the state budget. With respect to legislation, Director Taylor had referenced, there's a bill matrix that's included in your packet. I just want to touch on a couple of them. We had a lot of conversation last year, you may recall, on two bills that Assemblymember Laura Friedman, who's chair of the Assembly Transportation Committee, had authored, Assembly Bill 2237 and Assembly Bill 2438. The first one would have allowed the state to dip into our measure program and dictate which projects that they wanted to fund. The second one would have made everything, it would have deprioritized all highway projects and forced us to really consider really just bike and ped and some transit projects, which, you know, given our density issues, given the amount of goods movement that rolls on Highway 99, that's just not feasible when we're also trying to address safety and throughput. You know, folks that visit our region for enjoying, you know, Socorro National Forest or Yosemite, etc. So this year, what she decided to do is convene a large working group. And so there's a compilation of folks from the environmental justice community, self-help counties, CalCog, labor, the building industry, that have been kind of putting their thoughts into how do we implement, better implement Senate Bill 375, which was, it's been on the books for a decade now. But one setback is that we've only had funding for transportation we didn't have funding for transportation until Senate Bill 1 was enacted in 2017. And you know better than anybody that it takes a while to plan a project, to get the resources, to get all the pre-construction work done, and to make it shovel ready. And so it's been a learning process, hearing everybody's perspectives here, but essentially, you know, what the Assembly member wants to do with Assembly Bill 6, that's a little bit troubling with the bill in print, is she wants to give the Air Resources Board even more teeth on trying to approve our sustainable community strategies, which has been a little bit frustrating because we collaborate very closely with the ARB, and you know, for when we can't comply, we submit an alternative plan as far as what we would need to try to comply. This would just centralize the decision-making in Sacramento and make it difficult for us to, you know, deliver some of our projects. But, you know, this is something that I think on its face we want to oppose, but out of deference to the process, the Assembly member, we're waiting for additional feedback, you know, from stakeholders first. We've offered various suggestions as far as how do we fix transit to make it more safe, reliable, cost-effective for us to run the service, if it's going to be a mode that we rely upon without totally getting away from our work on the state highway system. And so the working group stopped meeting as of May 4th, I believe, and now they're just having individual meetings. So I'm in contact with the Assembly Transportation Committee staff to try to give them some of the suggestions. And we had a discussion before the San Joaquin Valley Regional Policy Council as well, as far as some solutions, so that we can give them that regional perspective as far as what would work to help us encourage mode shift while reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So stay tuned on this one and on Assembly Bill 7. Assembly Bill 7 just really talks about factoring in climate resiliency, zero emission vehicle infrastructure into our planning for the various state programs that are out there. It's fairly harmless, except, we just want to make sure that whatever's baked into the bill doesn't disadvantage us from qualifying for some of these programs. So we're looking at that one very intently on AB 7. But the bill that we're asking you today to take an action on is really problematic. It's Assembly Bill 1525. It's authored by Assemblymember Mia Bonta. She represents Oakland, in Alameda County. And the bill does a couple of things that are a little bit head scratching. It's proposing to take 60% of all resources that are administered by CalSTA, which is like, say, the Transit Capital and Intercity Rail Program, Caltrans, which is the SHOP funding, and then the California Transportation Commission, which is virtually everything else, and have 60% of those funds go to what is termed as a priority population area that is undefined in the legislation and would be defined after enactment by Caltrans and others. And that just seems to be backwards. There isn't any kind of clarity. And the intention is to really have more focused investments in, I think it's more disadvantaged communities, but we know again that in our community and several communities across the valley that folks drive until they can afford. So folks live further, they're super commuters. There's work that's not conducive to be conducted by transit, so they have to hop into trucks or cars if they're agricultural workers, for example. So certain investments have to be made outside of maybe what's a disadvantaged community because it serves a state purpose, because investments are on the state highway system. And so I think there's a little bit of a disconnect, and we're trying to work with the author, but they seem pretty dead set on just having this carve out for an unspecified population. And I just think that's going to wreak havoc on our ability to leverage our measure dollars and acquire any state funding. And it's really restricted to maintenance and bike and ped and some transit, not even rail is specified in the legislation. So, and we know how vocal we've been on being supportive of rail, whether it's been high-speed rail, whether it's been ACE, San Joaquin's. This is one that I think that we should take a firm position on and take an oppose and hope that we can try to compel the author to reconsider the thought process. It is in the Assembly Appropriations Committee, so I'm hoping that it gets held. But ideally, we would like to work with the proponents so that we can have a broader coalition to try to expedite delivery of projects that we see eye to eye on, that would better our communities. But that just is a very narrowly focused bill that I think would be detrimental to MCTC. So we're asking for an oppose. So I know I covered a lot. I'm happy to stop right there and answer any questions on the budget or the 3 bills that I referenced or any other bill on the matrix.
Thank you, Gus. Do we have any questions from the commissioners? Comments? Any public comment on this item? So we have a
So the action would be to authorize the chair to execute a letter to oppose AB 1520.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the policy board chair to execute a letter to oppose AB 1525.
we have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Madam Chair. Who was the second? It was between, okay, thank you. Oh, sorry. Missed that one. Motion carries. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, next item is the San Joaquin Valley Regional Policy Conference recap.
Yes, in, when was that? April, we all went to the Great Wolf, what was it called? Great Wolf Lodge in Manteca, for the policy conference. A number of us attended it. And so I usually, after we attend a conference, I usually like to give you an opportunity to share what you might have learned at the conference. And the theme there was better together. And so I think we heard that repetitively throughout the conference. It was a successful conference. I think it went very smoothly and well, and we look forward to next year. Next year's will be in Tulare. And so I just wanted to give the board members who were in attendance an opportunity to share any kind of feedback that they may have.
Thought it was a really good conference. It was a well-attended. What I enjoyed about it were the sessions themselves. There were a lot, but they weren't really long. They were half hour to 45 minutes and gave you a chance to really sample a lot of different topics. And, they had a lot of input from various subject areas. And it just kind of reminds you that the world of transportation and housing and so forth is very complicated, and it's getting more and more complicated all the time. But I would like to give a shout out to the city of Madera, because one of their employees won the scavenger hunt. Gary Conti, so he made everybody in Madera proud.
Good for him.
So I'll just add that it was, thank you for the opportunity. It was a great experience. I had the option to either go to Manteca or go to Hawaii for an immigration conference. But I felt that transportation is super important. And so it was great, lots of sessions and also the ability to meet with lots of folks in the industry. So it was really good. And it was nice to connect with some people that I didn't know were in the industry and I went to college with. So it was kind of, Manteca was in our from the area where I went to school. So, and I also want to congratulate Commissioner Poitras for being recognized as the Valley, I don't know the exact title of
Standing elected official or something like that.
something like that.
Yeah.
So,
Outstanding. But I'm just
yeah, great. And I think my favorite was listening in on former astronaut
Jose Fernandez.
Jose Hernandez. He was great. I've heard his story before, but it was great to hear it again and to connect with him. It was pretty inspiring. So thank you again.
I agree.
I'm sure just one more comment. It was interesting. It seemed, we had a lot of members of our Valley Coalition, obviously, and Caltrans District 6 and 10, which, are very, very important partners. Next year, whoever is going to be heading it up, I'd love to see some people from Caltrans headquarters there attending. So that would really, really be good. So whatever we need to do to encourage them or whatever, that would really be helpful.
Yeah, I don't know, so maybe in hindsight, thinking back, that maybe the district should have a better job of reaching out to headquarters. I'm not sure who controlled the guest list. I don't know if we're allowed to invite more than 1+1 for a party, but agreed. I think I only counted 2 people from headquarters that were there, but obviously the messaging was loud and clear. And obviously we had the district there preaching the choir on some of these items, but it would be good for some of the headquarters folks to hear that. And I've conveyed that since that time and let them know that it will be a District 6 next year in Tulare. So I strongly encourage them to come.
Well, I think they should be encouraged to know what a great partnership we have too. I mean, it's been said over and over again, we work hand in glove with District 6 and 10, and it's really, really been good. So, yeah, thank you.
Anyone else?
This is just for information.
Okay. Do we need to take public comment on this or
Is there anyone?
just in case? Okay. Item 5D, but draft Madera County zero emission vehicle readiness and implementation plan. Information item.
Thank you. Yes, so we draft zero emission vehicle readiness and implementation plan. MCTC has been working on this with the assistance from DKS Associates and Frontier Energy. I'd just like to point out before we get started, our staff report indicated that we would have that available this week. We have sent a few more comments, some final touch-ups before we release our draft. So the link that was provided in the staff report is still going to be the same link where you can access that, as well as the online EV planning toolkit and resources. I just want to clarify that before we start.
So my report today is a preliminary report on what we can expect when that draft does become available. I'm going to touch on a few of the key items of this plan we've been working on. Start with our purpose and need. Governor Newsom's zero emission by 2035 executive order N7920, elimination of new internal combustion passenger vehicle sales by 2035. So in only 12 short years, every new vehicle on the lot is going to be an EV vehicle. So there's a lot of planning and work to do before we get to that point. Similar holds true for 2045 for medium and heavy duty vehicles as well. So there's a lot happening in this field, in this industry, getting ready for this big change. We've had gas combustion engine vehicles for, many decades, I guess almost 100 years or over now. So quite the change. By putting that target 2035, it gives us time to do plans just like this, where we can understand where we're at, get an idea of where we need to go and all the work and investment that needs to go towards that to make it work. Next slide, please. Our plan goals for this were to assess the existing conditions for ZEV infrastructure, identify any challenges and potentially make opportunities from those challenges, recommend infrastructure improvements and investments, identify implementation strategies and policies, help promote ZEV infrastructure adoption, and provide stakeholders with tools and resources to help them plan and site and install ZEV infrastructure. Next slide, please. So our first bullet point on that last slide was about the existing conditions. We used a lot of data sources. Key amongst them was the Alternative Fuel Data Center, which is information that comes from the Department of Energy for sites that they host and maintain for electric and hydrogen energy and other non-fuel sources, as well as PlugShare, which is a lot more rapidly updated crowdsourced online fuel mapping tool. We looked at what the charging networks were, things like GoEV you might have seen out there, or Tesla, or EV Connect. They're all different brands that offer this service through their networks. We looked at the connectivity level and the type of connection. This image at the bottom of this slide we're looking at right now shows level 2 or DC fast charging level systems, as well as the different type of connections that exist out right there for vehicles right now. We also looked at the energy output level in kilowatts, and we looked at this all across the different locations in the region. We also looked at areas that are within 5 miles of our county borders in places like Mendota or Fish Camp or Fresno as well. Next slide, please. So we have a graphic here that kind of shows where we are in the big picture of this transition. We're at the early adoption phase. And by 2035, we need to be over that hump and really ready and able to handle the change and transition in that vehicle type. However, you'll see in the middle, there is this chasm right after the point we are now. Well, the chasm is the area it's an important piece of time where manufacturers, it's going to be important for them to make innovations in this field, to make easier and better access for this change. This plan recommends a few things that we can do to help cross that chasm locally. Steps that our local governments can take to support the early adopters and implement rules that help nudge other entities forward as well. So next slide, please. Yeah. So what those were looking at the permitting process. In California, there's AB 1236 and AB 970. And there's requirements within those for local jurisdictions to implement streamlined permitting for EV charging stations. Additionally, considering the complexity of this change, where we have a lot of different needs for change. This is going to be happening at a school bus level, at a public transit level, with heavy trucks, with all kinds of different fleets that are currently in operations. Not all agencies are maybe equipped to access data that's needed that might help them secure funding for this transition. They might not have the staff bandwidth. There might be issues with the availability of capital out there. We get reports through our outreach in this process that some people are trying to get a fleet change, but the inventory just isn't there. They have to wait a year or two before they can get the vehicles. So with this one, it's about finding ways we can work together, maybe simplify some of the complexity that is out there with this transition. And then the last one was similar, or was looking at new construction, how all new construction presents an opportunity to be in front of this change and potentially have cost savings, so you don't have to go back and retrofit something later when you have the opportunity to do it at the start. So the plan looks at those three areas and identify some steps that can be taken to potentially make those into opportunities from challenges. Let's go to the next slide, please. So one of the other goals was about recommending infrastructure and investment. To do this, we do what we do in a lot of our planning activities. We try to get a good idea of what's going to happen in the future. For our RTP, for example, we use a travel demand model. We use that for our air quality planning to assess the travel behavior in the future. Our RTP went to 2046. We used information from our model to look at 2035 for this plan. And our consultant worked with a company called Volta that makes a predict EV model. This is a projection model that focused specifically on electric vehicle activity and electric vehicle infrastructure of the future. So we can combine these data sources to hopefully get a good idea of the kind of planning steps we need to make, where we need to make investments and what type of investments. So our plan is going to document those into four categories. Public infrastructure, infrastructure at workplaces, and then as well as residential and multifamily housing or other similar types of housing areas, and then some regional hubs where they can handle a high volume of many different types of vehicles, including medium and heavy duty vehicles that are important for our economic activity in the region. And those would also potentially have hydrogen hub potential as well. And the infrastructure and investments for this plan, we also included a really extensive appendice that lists all kinds of different locations up and down the county that fall into one of these four categories that are just potential areas that we can consider making those types of investments or looking further and seeing how appropriate they are or when. It's just a matter of when for some of those locations. And on the picture on the right shows one of those locations, which is the Cameron Health Center at Allman and Emily. For example, that one falls under the public and workplace EV on our appendices matrix of these potential investments, as it has a high level of people coming there for the services every day, as well as a lot of people that are working there the entire day. So it fills out two of those criteria. Also, as part of this, the appendice that is right next to this is an extensive list of many different funding opportunities, federal, state, private partnership potential. There's quite an extensive section on what those are, and there are quite a few of them. Everything you might have heard, Volkswagen got sued a few years ago. A lot of those programs go into different sub-programs through that funding source, like funding for buses or infrastructure at public areas. There's also different rebate programs to the state and federal government. There's quite a few programs we list in that. I'm not going to get into all of them because I think there's like 20 or 30 to talk about, but the section itself is broken up really well to understand where they can be applied and how and for how long, knowing that a lot is happening in this and a lot of new programs are probably going to come online in the future too. Let's see, I think we can go to the next slide. So when we think about implementation strategies identified in the plan, it would be the prior slide, I think. There are several key recommendations, and the first one we have listed here is to coordinate CEV cooperative planning. And that's at the top, and that's probably going to be the most important one or one of the most important ones, and it really has a big effect on several of the bullet points under it. That is about having someone like MCTC be part of facilitating a large collaborative group. Our cities, our energy providers, our utility companies, our partners at Caltrans or the Air District, and other relevant stakeholders to this to really always stay on top of this very quickly changing environment in terms of finding new funding, finding the right locations, making sure we have a good education program so that we can let builders know everything that they need to know, or let the public know. Let fleet managers know. really just coordinating everything going forward as conveying new information or existing information is going to be really important every year. So let me see there. I need to look at my notes here. That's a little too far for me. But yeah, that first one really does play into a lot of the following bullet points, such as having a good education program, the most effective ways to teach people about this and to make them comfortable and understanding of what's necessary in that transition, as well as the workforce opportunity and workforce development within this. There's a whole field that is going to be centered around getting people that are engineers, journeyman engineers and so on, or electricians, excuse me, getting them ready that they can start working on this and installing these very easily and quickly as well, and dive right into that field, as well as the EV mechanics that are going to be needed. This is a big change from internal combustion engines to a new engine type. So it's going to take mechanics because they're not all going to work all the time like our cars do now. Another recommendation here is to work with the air district to install air quality sensors. This is something that gives us potential to measure our progress more accurately, maybe give us a better idea of how well our investments are able to work, maybe be able to tell a story that helps us secure funding and identify new needs within what we can learn from having additional sensors in our community. We would want to create a local dashboard of data. Again, this can be helpful. We talked about complexity before. Well, finding all the needed data we can to help us understand how our investments are working, how we can potentially leverage those into asking for funds and partnership for funds, whether it's with state, federal, public, or private sources. And then supporting a municipal fleet transition, as often those are going to be our first implementers of this. There are a lot of regulations out there, as we mentioned, for school buses and fleets already, like there are going to be for private vehicles in 2035. And then we talked about streamlined permitting, just really looking at what we're seeing is there's a trend of being more competitive for funding sources if you have streamlined permitting and being eligible for some new state funding sources. And it's potential that trend continues, especially in this field. And then just doing whatever we can to continue to encourage home and workplace charging. We'll talk about that in our last slide a little bit. And then adopting EV related building codes that can just make sure our communities and our jurisdictions are really ahead of the game on not having to go back and do something in the future potentially, but where the opportunity does exist to implement those in what gets built now through code. So I think we can go to that last slide I mentioned. Part of this was developing resources that can be picked up by anyone that wants to get into a plan that they might have for their property, for their home even, or just maybe they want to buy a new vehicle and find out what's available at a consumer level as far as rebates, programs that can help them install stuff in their home. We have this on our webpage already published. All of these resources are available. There's a lot of toolkits, a lot of things that maybe someone has a business and they're considering, do I want to get into the EV game in my own parking lot? This is something that can really help guide them along the line, what they need to know, who they need to talk to, what they should be considering if they haven't thought of it already, and gives them a path towards making it easier to implement and get into EV charging on their own properties. This also has information about the workforce development, the EVITP program, and that is really helps journeyman electromen get right into a program that helps them get certified for EV installation. There's information about state permitting, some sources or some resources from the Governor's Office of Planning and Resources that can really help either at a city level or just in engineering and planning level about some of the regulations that are out there. And then there's also a toolkit for your fleet as well as a site evaluation tool. So these are already available and they've been published by us for over a month now, but these were developed as part of this plan as well. So that is a preview in a nutshell, and I say that seriously, this plan actually does have quite a bit of information. So, we're pleased with the level of detail they were able to give us in some of these areas especially.
Did I understand you say that these resources are all on our website?
That last slide, that's actually a picture of our toolkit. And all of those have a document you could take as a checklist or an inventory tool. And there's a little bit of information actually higher on that website for at the consumer level that can tell you, do you need a DC fast charger? Do you need a level 2 charger? Kind of gives an idea what to expect, how fast those might be compared to just having a converter for your wall outlet, which is a little slow for the vehicles. And then it also lists a lot of the resources available at a consumer level, like PG&E rebates or state rebates for new vehicles or installing infrastructure.
Anyone else? All right, thank you, Dylan. Do we have any public comment on this item?
So, as I mentioned, the draft should be available pretty soon. It wasn't gonna be this week anymore. And then, the way we do our public participation plan is this, since this is a plan that really covers the whole region, that has a 30-day draft period, and then we'll bring it back at a later meeting for our board to consider for a final.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, now MCTC sitting as the Madera County Transportation Commission. Item 6, reaffirm all actions taken while sitting as the Transportation Policy Committee.
Make a motion for approval.
Second.
We have first by Commissioner Poitras, second by Commissioner Rogers. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Then I will announce that Commissioner Gallegos left at approximately 4 o'clock. Item 7, administrative consent items. Any questions?
Move to approve. Second.
First by Commissioner Rogers, second by Commissioner Poitras. Do you have any public comment on this item?
No hand raised.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 8, administrative action discussion items. There are none. Moving back to MCTC sitting as the Madera County 2006 Transportation Authority. Administrative consent items.
Make a motion for approval.
Second.
First by Commissioner Poitras, second by Commissioner Rogers. Oh, do we have any public comment on this item?
No hand raised.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 10, A, Measure T, Citizens Oversight Committee Member Reappointment.
Move to approve.
We have a motion by Commissioner Rogers,
I'll second.
second by Commissioner Poitras. Any public comment on this?
No hands raised.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Miscellaneous items from staff.
I just have one item, just like to announce and recognize Nick on our staff. He will be leaving us at the end of this month. Pursuing his master's degree at the University of Notre Dame. So we will be moving onward and upward, right? So I'd like to thank him for all of his work here at the commission for the past 2 years. And
Does he have a speech?
Congratulations.
it's his speech.
We can say a few words.
Hey.
I'm just, should I go to the podium? I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Take the opportunity, brother.
Yeah.
I really just have to thank everyone here. Like, this job has been, you can't imagine the kind of blessing it was. I graduated in the heat of COVID, couldn't get a job for 8 months, and I got the best job I could have ever asked for, 4 minutes from my house. So it's been just really good. It's been incredible just to give back to my communities in such a big way. And I'm really just thankful for everyone, all the staff and all the people that we worked with. And you guys, and just, part of the wider community and the state, because it's full of nice people. We might have, different objectives, different goals, but it's always been just great people at the heart of it, and there's the job and there's people, and we've always been able to separate that and really been there for each other. So I appreciate it a lot. As for Notre Dame, it's like, where do you go when you're already at the top? This is the top, so. But genuinely, like, God bless you all. Thank you very much for everything. I told my parents they should come today just in case, but they're like, oh, we're retired. Why should we come? Thank you very much. Appreciate it all.
Thank you.
All right.
He was hired, during COVID. That is probably one of the hardest times to come on board because we're shut down, staff's not here. And so we were limited on staff in the office, and he was here, stayed committed every day, coming to the office. And we didn't have the opportunity to go out and meet and network with other people either. So everything was via Zoom. So when we opened back up again, sending him off to some
He's
conferences.
doing great things for them.
Yeah.
I think he made up for the lost time. 'Cause I've been impressed with this young man, watching him like at the groundbreakings at the conference. He's sitting there networking with the Secretary of Transportation. And he kept me out of my hotel room like midnight at the conference last night, like last ones ago. But no, I watched some network city managers, elected officials with confidence. And I think back when I was, a year or two in the planet, there's no way. I was super impressed.
Yeah, I'll just add that it was a pleasure getting to know Nick a little better at the transportation conference, and I'm so excited to see where you go because the sky's the limit for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Is that all from?
That's the only items, I believe, from staff. Does anybody else have any? I don't think so. So we're good.
Items from Caltrans.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll take Patricia's time because I have a lot of stuff. Just a few updates on some of the grant program. Just a reminder, you probably saw the announcement that Clean California was extended to May 31st. So you agencies were, I'm sure, all very proactive and turned your applications in prior to the deadline. If you want to pull them back and work on them a little further to enhance them, just reach out to the Clean California program and they will allow that. The other calls going on here pretty soon. We talked about the highways to boulevard programs, the state program. If that is a program you're interested, I'd really encourage your state to follow along on the workshops because this is a different kind of program than I've seen in the past. They have $149 million and we're gonna pick, I guess, three. They're calling it a call for community. So it's not necessarily a call for a specific project. It's a community that they're gonna pretty much walk through the whole process of engagement and trying to put the community in position to go after local and federal funds to fund these projects, and there's $149 million available. Like I said, we're gonna pick three: a urban, a rural, and a corridor project. And then once those are selected, then we'll decide how to allocate those funds to help them be successful in securing the process. Also, another reminder for the Safe Streets and Roads for All program. That NOFO is out now through July 10th. Like I said, there was some success here in our region last year, so I encourage you to apply. And then on the 99 corridor plan, we did give our award to the consultant. It went out on the 15th. That is finally awarded to consultant. So we'll be numbering funds this month. They'll be starting in a couple of weeks. Successful firm. It's a team actually. So it's Jacobs Engineering, Cambridge Systematics. So there's a lot of experience with the modeling that we think will be a heavy part of this 99 corridor plan. And then VRPA, which would be Georgina Vivian doing the engagement. So someone we're all very familiar with, and she helped put on the 99 Summit. So I think we have a really good team. So looking forward to get started on that. Also on the federal front, the call for the multimodal project discretionary grant program, MPDG. Again, we'll be partnering with San Joaquin JPA for applying for a grant for Madera Station relocation. There'll be a Caltrans led effort. I say Caltrans led, it's one of the ones we select as Caltrans to go after. We'll work very closely with Dan Levitt and his team. I think last year the request was about an $87 million ask we had last year. I would expect that probably even go up this year. So we're starting to have those conversations on putting together that application to help facilitate that, to fund that Madera Station relocation project. South Madera 6-lane project from 7 to 12. We continue to work on right-of-way and design. We continue to move that project forward. The downtown Madera 145 project. We had a good internal meeting yesterday with our exec team to talk about this project, and thank you again to the city for willing to put up the $3 million to make that project more holistic. I know there's a lot of attributes the city wanted to see, like extending the sidewalk out, the decorative lighting, et cetera. And so I think we got the point where we kind of weighed out with, do we delay this project a little bit to make it the best project we can, or you try to push away on our bureaucratic process of being on schedule? It sounds like there is consensus that we're okay with, delaying the project a little bit. We think in the long run it'll be to the best benefit. Right now, with the consultant we're working and we're thinking it might delay it 7 to 8 months maybe. But in the scheme of things, I don't think that'll be a big deal because
The schedule is scheduled to go to award, I think in fall of 2024. Oftentimes, when you get the winter months, you delay construction till spring anyway, so it might end up being a wash anyway in the larger scheme of things. So I think it's actually the right decision. So I envision, like I said, we had that meeting with our project team yesterday, so they'll be reaching out to Keith and your staff, have conversations about that going forward. The 99233 interchange project, the draft environmental document was circulated on April 29th, so that's out for a 30-day review. That'll be the first project that I think we've done in the state where we're able to address VMT with a mitigated neg deck and not do an EIR. So we're pretty excited about that. And thank you to the local agencies for helping us out with identifying, VMT mitigation through van pools and things of that nature to offset the VMT. The Cottonwood Creek Bridge Replacement Project, as many of you know, we had the groundbreaking April 20th. Thank you to all. I think that's probably the most star-studded groundbreaking I've ever attended in my Caltrans career. Not often you see the Secretary of Transportation, the Director of Caltrans, Federal Highways, and Supervisor Rogers in the same place at one time. It doesn't get much better than that. But no, really, it was a great event. I mean, usually you don't see that kind of turnout. And I know they're supposed to be in Visalia the day before for a meeting, and they got called away. But they went back to the Bay Area and made a point to come back that very next morning for that groundbreaking. So I think that was a huge event. And I know I've highlighted that with some of the other counties, and they're a little jealous, I think, so I haven't seen that kind of a turnout for a groundbreaking. Pretty neat. Yeah, it was great. The last project, the Ranch Rehab project out there on 41 from Avenue 15 to 145. Because first working day for that project was this Monday. So over the next few weeks, they'll start putting up the bio fencing out there. And then, so right now there's currently no delays or impacts of traffic. All the work's happening off the route, but probably 3 to 4 weeks, you'll start seeing working on building I'll say the detours or the bypasses that they'll build for while they're in construction. And then you'll start seeing signage for maybe potentially some delays during construction out there. So continue to update you on that as that becomes available. And with that completes my report. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
One question, as far as the 99 corridor study, how is that coming on? Did you already mention that or?
With great detail, and I don't remember what I said. I'm just kidding. No, I'm just joking. No, that was awarded. Finally, it was officially awarded, no appeals. It was awarded to a team that pretty happy with. It's Jacobs, who's done a lot of corridor work, and they actually expressed a lot of interest a year ago. We're advertising that about this kind of work. Then we have Cambridge Systematics, who's well known for their modeling capability, because we anticipate a lot of technical modeling work since we're doing the 99 corridor and truck lanes. And then VRPA, Georgina Vivian's part of their team as a sub as well for the engagement component of it. So I think it's a really good team. So we're excited to start working. We're probably looking at notice of award went out, so we'll be executing the contract over the next couple of weeks. So probably first week of June, they'll hit the ground running. And then, like I said, really want to make sure we engage our partners early on with that. And
You're looking at about an 18-month process, is that?
yeah, I mean, that'll be from start to finish. I do think the way we wrote the scope, there's a lot of deliverables that occur early on that we can tap into to support the environmental documents for the 99 corridor we're doing. So we'll be able to extract some of that stuff and have consultants help us along the way. But yeah, I think to check that, I hate to use the word check the box, but to read that requirement for the STIP where we had to have a corridor plan, we're very comfortable with that. It'll be done in plenty of time to not affect delivery of the 997-12 project schedule. And I know my directors made it really clear, if we're ever able to accelerate that project for some reason, we're not gonna let a plan and document hold us up, so.
Excellent, thank you.
Next is items from commissioners. We'll start with commissioner appointments.
Nothing to report, thank you.
Yeah,
Nothing to report, thank you.
I have nothing to report. All right, with that, so this is my first time doing a meeting with closed session. So do we adjourn? What do we do?
You have to adjourn this meeting.
We adjourn the meeting since there will be no action coming out of the closed session. So we can adjourn the meeting and then.
Okay, we'll adjourn the meeting. And then do I need to read the items in the closed session?
Please do, just in case. Never know.
Closed session, 12A is public employee performance evaluation. Pursuant to Government Code Section 54957 B1, position is the executive director. And 12B is conference with labor negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. Commission negotiator, Chair Wasim Ahmed, Vice Chair Gonzalez, and Councilmember Jose Rodriguez, the employee is the executive director. Usually our county council does that.
Give us a second, we'll shut it all down.
Okay,